my plan for 7 days. Yeah, see here. So in the first day itself, we are going to see the introduction to data structures and the basics of Python. We are going to see these concepts on first day. Okay, introduction about data structures, and we will see little bit in basics of Python language, because whenever we want to implement the data structures using Python language, you should know what are the things available in Python and how to use those things for implementation of data structures. That's why I'm covering the data structures as well as Python language also. And then second day, I want to focus on object-oriented programming concepts, because Python is a object-oriented programming language. So you have to know how to declare a class in Python language, how to create object for that, and how to write methods in the class, how to call the methods, everything you have to know. That's why in second day, we are going to learn about object-oriented programming concepts like classes, objects, inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, encapsulation, and methods. Then later we are going to focus on strings which are available in Python. That means how to create strings, how to perform the string handling functions, how to modify the strings, all the things we will learn in third day. And then we are going to see the predefined data structures available in Python. Those are lists, tuples, sets, dictionaries. And then we are going to focus on how to implement stacks, how to implement queues in Python language. And we are going to see the files and modules in Python. And if time permits, I will show you the trees and graphs also, how to implement trees and graphs in Python language. Okay. So anyone please respond. Is it okay? This one is, or you want any other topics? Can anyone please respond? Is it okay, or otherwise, if you want any topics other than this, tell me. I will tell you those topics also, if time permits.
We'll post it in chat box.
Okay. That's fine. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because earlier also the IEEE student branch conducted one workshop. In that also I told data structures in Python language, but in that workshop I don't explain the concepts which are available in Python language, and I am not explained the topics of object programming concepts and files and modules. These topics are strings. These are all not covered in the workshop. Okay, that's why in this workshop I am focusing on these topics also. Okay. If it is okay for you, I will start the session now. Okay. So I don't want to present any PPT. Directly I will type in the notepad. Okay. So when I am delivering the lecture, if you have any doubts, immediately ask me. Okay. Or you can post in the chat box also. Okay. This is not. Yeah. Is it visible? The notepad is?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Just a minute. I will increase the font size so that you can get better clarity. Yeah. So the first we are going to see or learn about introduction to data structures. Okay. We are going to learn about introduction to data structures. Why it is blinking like this? Maybe this introduction part, many of the members know this, but even though you know this, try to listen. Okay, even though you know all these concepts, that means already maybe you are in second year or third year, or some members are final year. You may heard these things earlier also. Okay, so even though you heard, okay, please listen. So the first thing is introduction to data structures. So here we are going to focus on what is meant by data. So if you want to learn data structures, we are mainly focusing on the term called as data. So first of all, we have to know what is meant by data in programming terminology. Okay, so here the data is nothing but a single value, or we can say set of values, that is considered as data in our programming terminology. Data may be either the value of a single value or a set of values. That value may be either the value of the variable or the value of the constant. Okay, whether it is the value of the variable or the value of the constant, that is considered as data here. Okay, for example, you can consider anything. If you write name of a student, okay, that means the name of the student is something like Srinivas. That is one data here. Okay, if you write some date like 30 11 21, that is some data. Or if you write 3.14, that is the value of pi, that is the value of constant, that is also considered as data here. Or if you write salary of an employee 5 lakhs, that is also a data. So whether it is the value of a variable or whether it is the value of a constant, everything is considered as data here. Okay, so data means a single value or a set of values. Okay, then what is meant by information? Okay, what is meant by information? So information and data, there is a slight difference here between data and information. Information is nothing but a meaningful data. Meaningful data is called as information. That means for the data, if you add a meaningful description, then that is considered as information. Okay, for any kind of data, if you add the meaningful description, that is called as information. So in computer also, for computer, we are supplying the data and that data will be processed and the computer will give the information as a output. Okay, so whatever the data we are supplying to the computer, that is called as data here, and the computer will process your data and it gives the output as information. So information is nothing but processing data or processed data, or we can say meaningful data is called as information. Okay, example, if you write something 75, okay, so 75 is one number or one value that is considered as data here. So this is a raw data. If you add some description to this, marks of student 1 anar anukondi, then it is having some meaning. 75 is having one meaning here, that is marks of one student 1. Then this entire thing is called as information. Okay, the meaningful data is called as information here. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So for the data, for raw data, if you add any meaningful description, then that is considered as information here. Okay, not only 75, if you take anything, okay, if you take some 50,000, generally 50,000 is a raw value, or we can say some raw data. There is no meaning for this. If you add something like this, salary of employee 1, then there is a meaning for 50,000. Then this entire thing is called as information here. So information means processed data, and the meaningful description which is added to the data is called as information here. Okay. Now coming to our the workshop title, that is data structures. What is meant by data structure? Okay. So in simple words, we can say data structure is a group of elements, or we can say collection of elements which provides an efficient way of storing and organizing the data in a computer. Collection of elements which provides an efficient way or particular way of storing and organizing the data in a computer so that the data can be used efficiently. Sorry. Efficiently. This is the general definition of data structure. So collection of elements. We are going to store group of elements under a single name. That is called as a data structure here. And every data structure provides a particular way of storing and organizing the data in a computer. That means when the data is there, that data is to be stored and organized in a proper way in a computer, so that the data can be used in future for performing any kind of operations. Am I right? So whenever the data is there, that data should be maintained properly. If you are not maintained properly, if you are not stored properly, if you are not organized properly, then that data is useless. Because if you are not organized properly, that data is not used for future purpose. Am I right? So that's why we are always, when we have the data, always we are going to store the data and organize the data in a proper way. That particular way will be specified by using the concept of data structure here. Okay. The term itself indicates data and structure. Structure means the way of organizing or the way of storing. Okay, how we are going to store the data, how we are going to maintain the data, how we are going to perform the operations on data, everything will be clearly mentioned or specified by using the concept of data structures here. Okay, so whenever the data is there, whether it is small data or large data, that should be stored or organized in a proper way. That way of organization can be provided by the data structure. ఓకే, దట్ మీన్స్ మీకున్న డేటాని ఎలా స్టోర్ చేయాలి, ఎలా ఆర్గనైజ్ చేయాలి, దట్ షుడ్ బి మెన్షన్డ్ బై యూజింగ్ ద కాన్సెప్ట్ ఆఫ్ data structure, so that the data can be used efficiently for future purposes. That means whenever the data is required, immediately you can retrieve the data from the storage. If you store properly, then only you can retrieve the data in a proper way. That's why data structure plays an important role nowadays. Because nowadays, if you see the industry or any organization, nowadays data is becoming more, or data is becoming more and more by day. So the data analyst jobs or data analytics jobs are more now in industry. That means the data plays an important role now in industry. Day by day, everything is automized. So data becomes more in industry or in organizations. So that data should be maintained properly. That's why data structure is an important role now to develop any project or to develop any applications, okay, data structure is very, very important one. Okay, because it provides the way of storing and organizing the data. That's why in for your career point of view, data structure plays an important role. If you are attending any campus interviews also, mainly the interviewer or the organization will focus on data structures and algorithms. That is the main thing they are going to ask in campus interviews. That's why data structure is now a very important role. Okay. Okay, na? And whenever the data is there, that data should be maintained properly. Okay. You can take any example in real life that is suitable for data structures. Okay. So if you have some 100 books, for example, in your home or at some place, if you have 100 books, if 100 books are scattered like anything, then it is very difficult to pick up one book which is required for you. Am I right? Or otherwise, if you arrange those books in a proper order, like the category wise, if you arrange the books in shelves, then it is very easy to pick up one book which is required for you. Am I right? So picking up a book is very easy when you store or when you organize the books in a proper way. So there also we are going to use the concept called as data structure. Okay, by following one data structure, we are going to store the data in the shelves, or we are going to arrange the books in shelves, so that whenever any book is required, we can easily pick up one book from the shelves. So if you take any example in real life or in industry or applications or projects, it is definitely related to data structures. Okay, so data structure plays a major role nowadays in almost in all projects or almost in all applications. Okay, so data structure always provides the efficient way for storing and organizing the data in a computer. Okay, then we are going to see what is the need of data structures. Okay, why we need data structures, why we are going to organize or why we are going to store the data in a proper way. Okay, so as I told you earlier, day by day the data is becoming in a huge manner, and day by day the applications are getting more complex. Am I right? So day by day applications are getting complex and day by day data will be increasing. Okay, so if these two things are happen, that means applications are getting complex and the data is increasing day by day, so that we as a users or as a programmers, we are facing some problems. Okay, the problems are we are facing some problems as a user or as a programmer. The first problem is processor speed. Second problem is data search, and third one is multiple requests. Okay, there are three problems mainly we are facing when we are handling a large amount of data. Okay, because day by day the data is increasing. So if the data is increasing, we are facing these three problems. One is processor speed, and second one is data search, and third one is multiple requests. So among these three, the first one is processor speed. So if you have a huge amount of data or large amount of data, to handle that data, we require the high configured processor is required. Am I right? So if you want to handle a huge amount of data or large amount of data, you require a high speed processor. Okay, so even though if you have high speed processor, sometimes the processor may fail to handle that huge amount of data. That is the biggest problem we are facing. Because day by day, the data is increasing in terms of billions of files, not in hundreds or not in thousands. The day by day, the data is increasing in billions of files. So it is very difficult for the processor, whatever the processor we have now today. So those processors are sometimes may fail to handle that huge amount of data. That is the first problem we are facing, to handle the large amount of data. And the second problem is data set. That means when you have the huge amount of data, from that huge amount of data, if you want to search for one data item, then it takes a lot of time. Okay, suppose if you have the file size, maybe the whatever we call it as some 50 KB, or we can say, sorry, 50, not 50 KB. If you have some 50 GB of data is there. Okay, if you have one file and that file contains some 50 GB of data, and among that data, if you want to search for one thing in the file, it takes a lot of time, because the file size is very big, because we have the 50 GB of data is there in the file. So from that file, if you want to search for anything, it takes a lot of time for performing this searching operation. Okay, so that is the another problem we are facing, that is data search. And the third one is multiple requests. Okay, multiple requests means at a time some thousands of users or hundreds of users sending the requests for the data, then the server is unable to handle that many number of requests. Okay, because as a server, the server is responsible for accepting the requests from the clients, and the server is going to provide the response to the clients. Am I right? So always client will send the request and the server will accept the request, and server will send the response to the client. So suppose hundreds of users are sending the request at a time for the same data, then the server may fail to handle that much of requests. Okay, because so much of data is there in server, so that much of requests cannot be handled by the server. That is another problem we are facing. Okay, so all these things, all these problems we are facing because of the data is increasing. So if the data is increasing, we are facing these three problems. So to avoid or to resolve these three problems, we are going to use appropriate data structures, so that the data can be organized in a proper way, so that the data can be handled in a proper way, or the data can be handled very efficiently. Okay, if even though if you have the large amount of data, if you arrange those data in a proper way or particular way, then that data can be handled very efficiently by using the concept of data structures. That is the need of data structures here. Okay, that's why I told you earlier, for either you have the small data or the huge amount of data, that should be arranged in a particular way, so that the data can be handled very efficiently. Okay, that is the need of data structures. Are you getting my point, students?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. To ask any questions, please type in chat box. I will give you the answer. Okay. That is the need of data structures. And the next one is types of data structures. Types of data structures. Generally, we have two types of data structures. One is primitive data structures, and the second one is non-primitive data structures. One is primitive data structures and second one is non-primitive data structures. So the first one is primitive data structures. Primitive data structures means all the primitive data types which are supported by the programming languages. That means all the primary data types. That means all the fundamental data types which are supported. Sorry. All the primary data types supported by programming languages are considered as primitive data structures. That means in your C language or in your C++ or Java language, you have some data types. What are the data types? Int, float, char. These are all data types, kada? Double. Okay. So all these things, int, float, double, char, long, all these are considered as primitive data structures. Okay. Whatever the primary data types you have in your programming languages, all are coming under the category of primitive data structures. Okay. The second thing is non-primitive data structures. These data structures are constructed. These data structures are constructed using primitive data structures. These data structures are constructed using primitive data structures. That means by using the int or by using float or by using character or by using double, we are going to construct or we are going to build the non-primitive data structures. And these non-primitive data structures again categorized into two types. One is linear, linear data structure, and second one is non-linear data structures. Okay. Non-primitive data structures are again classified into two categories. One is linear data structures and second one is non-linear data structures. So here, first one is linear data structures. Linear data structure means a data structure in which we are going to store the data in sequential order. Okay. A data structure in which we are going to store the data in sequential order, that is called as linear data structure. Okay. The best example for this one is, you are familiar with this, arrays. Okay. Almost everyone knows arrays concept in C language or in Java language. In arrays, we are going to store the data in sequential order. That means one after the another. First, we store the element at location A of 0. The array name is A of 0. First, you can store, then A of 1, then A of 2, then A of 3, up to A of n minus 1 you're going to store. That means always we store the data in sequential order, one after the another. So arrays is the example for linear data structure. That means arrays is also a data structure which is coming under linear data structure. And the next example is stacks, and the next example is queues, and the next example is linked list. These four are coming under the category of linear data structures, because in all these four data structures we are going to store the data in sequential order. That's why this is coming under linear data structures. Okay. Then coming to the non-linear data structures, we are going to store the data in a, hello? Please everyone, please mute yourself. Somebody is speaking. Yeah. So whenever in a data structure, if you are storing the data in random order, that means not in sequential order, that is coming under the category of non-linear data structures. A data structure in which we store the data in random order, that is considered as non-linear data structures. Example, trees and graphs. These two are coming under the category of non-linear data structures. Okay. So data structures are mainly classified in two types, primitive and non-primitive. Again, non-primitive is given in two types, linear and non-linear. Linear means sequential order, non-linear means random order. Okay. Then we will see what are the advantages of data structures. Okay. The first advantage is efficiency. Okay. The first advantage of data structure is efficiency. So whenever you want to write any program, or if you want to develop any project or any application, the program or application or project, whatever you are developing, that program or application, that project efficiency should always depends on the selection of data structure. Okay. So whenever you are writing the program or application or project, you have to select appropriate data structure for your application or appropriate data structure for your project, appropriate data structure for your program. That is very, very, very important, because based on that only your program efficiency will be calculated. So your program efficiency always depends on the selection of or choosing of data structure. That's why always you should be very careful while selecting the data structure for your program or application or project. Okay, that is very, 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 very important, because in every program or in every application or in every project you are going to use some data. Whenever the data is there, that data should be organized in a proper way. So for every program, for every application, for every project, data structure is required. So that data structure you have to select. You have to select either arrays or stacks or queues or linked list or trees or graphs. Depends on the program you are developing. You may choose any one of these data structures for your program. That selection of data structure is very, very important. That will influence your program efficiency. Okay. Your program efficiency is always depends on the selection of data structures. That is the first point. The second point is reusability. Okay. Once you implement one data structure, or once you created one data structure for your program, and that data structure can be used in any other program also. That means reusability can be achieved once you implement the data structure. Okay. So reusability can be achieved. That means we can use the same data structure in several programs or in several applications. Okay. Once you implement the data structure, that data structure you can use in any other programs or in any other applications. That is the second advantage. And the third advantage is abstraction. Third advantage is abstraction. That means by using data structures, we can achieve something called as abstraction. Here, I told you one thing. I will tell you one thing. So data structures are mainly implemented using ADT. ADT is nothing but abstract data type. By using ADT, we are going to implement the data structures. So what happened here is, whenever the client uses data structures, then the client should use the data structure, but the client should not know the implementation details. Okay, client should not know the implementation details. So by using ADT, we are hiding some implementation details from the user. That means we are providing only the information which is required for the clients. We are not providing the information which is not necessary for the clients. In that way, we can achieve abstraction by implementing data structures using ADT. Okay. By using ADT, we can implement the data structures so that we can achieve the abstraction here. Okay. Hello. For example, if you consider the stack data structure. Okay. For example, if you consider the stack data structure. So on stack data structure, we are going to perform mainly 3 operations. One is push operation, second one is pop operation, third one is peek operation. Okay. On stack data structure, we are going to have 3 operations, mainly push operation, pop operation, and peek operation. So by using this ADT, we can specify only what are the operations we are going to have in stack data structure. The implementation can be left to the client. Okay, the client can implement these functions by using either C language or Python language or C++ or Java. That's the user wish or the client wish. Okay. Hello. Hello. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that means what is a data structure and what are the operations we are going to perform on data structure, only that should be specified. And the remaining implementation can be leave it to the clients. Okay. So while learning data structures also, you should learn data structure concepts very clearly, and that data structure concepts you can implement by using any one of the programming language. That's your wish. You can implement data structures using C language or C++ or Java or Python, whatever language you are familiar. Then by using that language, you can implement data structures. But the concept of data structures are very, very important. You should thoroughly understand the concepts of data structures. And once you understand the concept of data structures, that's your wish. You can implement data structures in any one of the programming language that you are familiar with. Okay. So the third advantage is we can achieve the abstraction by using the concept of ADT. Okay. Hello. By using ADT, we can achieve the abstraction. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So can anyone please respond? What are the applications of data structures? Do you have any idea? Anyone? Can anyone tell me what are the applications of data structures? Anyone having any idea? Applications of data structures. You can post it in chat box also if you know the answer. Hello? Anybody having any idea?
Ticket booking.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Ticket booking.
Ticket booking. Okay. Any other? Very good. Ticket booking. So generally in almost all applications, whatever today we are using, in every application, almost the data structure is there. Okay. Some of the applications of data structures are, we are going to use the data structures in operating systems. Okay. I think everyone knows operating systems. Operating system is an interface between the user and hardware. Whenever the user wants to communicate with the hardware parts, then we are going to use operating system. So after buying a computer, after buying a laptop, you should install one operating system in your laptop or desktop. Am I right? Without operating system, you cannot do anything. Either that is Windows or Linux, that's your wish. But operating system is mandatory. So operating system will be acting as an interface between yourself and your computer or the hardware. So in operating systems, for doing some tasks like processor tasks or scheduling tasks, we are going to use data structures. And coming to the compilers, compiler design. That means while developing the compiler for C language or C++ or Java language, there the designers will use the data structures. And in DBMS also, database management systems, they are going to use data structures. Okay. And in gaming also, video games or any online games, they are going to use the data structures. And simulation, there also they use data structures. And the statistical data analysis, there also we are going to use data structures. Okay, so almost in our daily life or in our almost all software projects or software applications we are developing, everywhere we are going to use data structures, because when data is there, compulsory data structure is required. Okay, so whenever the data is there, compulsory data structure is required. Okay, now there are some of the applications of data structures. Okay, not only these 6 applications, almost in all projects and all applications, we are going to use data structures. Okay, that is about little bit introduction about data structures. So I think everyone got the definition of data structure and types of data structures we have, and what are the advantages of data structures, and what is the need of data structures, and what are the applications of data structures. Is it clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you are clear, somebody is waiting in the lobby.
Sir, we are unable to join her, sir.
Okay. Yeah. If you are clear this, I will go for the introduction to Python. Shall I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we are going to see the basics of Python language, or we can say introduction to Python language. Here in the basics of Python, we are going to see what are the important features of Python language, and we will see how to write a simple program in Python, and we will see what are the input operations we are going to perform in Python language, and what are the output operations we are going to perform in Python language, and we will see how to write if statement, how to write while statement, how to write do, how to write for loop in Python language. Okay, because maybe some members know about Python language and some members don't know about Python language. Okay, so I'm starting from the scratch now. So Python is one of the programming language, and it was developed in the early 1990s. Okay, in the early 1990s, the Python was introduced, or Python was invented. But at that point of time, so many languages are coming, like Java language, and Java language Java language is everywhere. So Python will be in somewhat what we called Python is not used very frequently for all applications. So again now the machine learning is introduced, or data science is introduced, or artificial intelligence is there. So nowadays, again, the Python will be a prominent role to perform the artificial intelligence task, machine learning task, or data science operations. So that's why nowadays Python programming is again a very important program to get into the industry. Okay. So Python is a very important language. Python language is able to do all the tasks. Whatever the task you want to do in C language or C++, Java, okay, then all the tasks will be done by using only a single language called as Python. So Python is the very much important language to implement any kind of application. That may be the system application, that may be the user application. Any application you can develop using the Python language. You can develop a desktop application or GUI application, or you can develop the what we call the mobile application. Everything, web application, everything is possible with Python language. Okay, that's why Python is a very much important language nowadays, and especially for data analytics. If you want to analyze the huge amount of data, Python is the Python is the only language to do the data analytics. Such an important language Python is. Okay. And first we will see the features of Python language. Because of these features only, Python is popular. That's why we will learn the features of Python language. The first feature is simple. So Python language is such a simple language, even though the beginners, that means if anybody wants to learn programming languages, okay, the beginners can easily learn the programming language Python, because such a easiest language Python is. Okay. Because whatever the complex concepts available in C language or C++ or Java, everything is removed in Python language. So Python is the very much simplest language to learn for any beginners. Okay. And it is very easy to learn and very easy to write or code. Easy to learn and code. Okay. Anybody can easily learn the Python language and can write the code using the Python language. Okay. Even though you don't have any background knowledge of programming, anyone can easily learn the Python language and can write the code in Python language. And if you read the Python program, it's like English sentences. Okay. If you observe any Python program, that Python program is like English sentences, because in Python program there is no concept of semicolon, there is no concept of curly brackets, there is no concept of what we call semicolons, all the things. Okay, that's why if you see Python program, you can feel like we are studying English sentences. Okay, that's why the Python is the easiest language or easiest program to understand. Okay. Then Python is a free and open source language. Python is a free and open source language. Okay. So here open source means whatever the code they used for developing the Python language, that is available as a free source or open source to all the users. So anybody can access the code and edit the code, and you can add any low level modules to the existing Python language also. That is also possible. Okay. Open source means whatever the code the Python developers written, that code is available to you. Okay. That means whatever the Python libraries are there, everything is available to you. You can use it and you can edit the code and you can add your own programs to the Python library. That is also possible. Okay. That is the open source language. And you can easily freely download the Python software from python.org website, and you can install it and you can use it. Okay, that is a free software. Okay, and the next one is, this is a high level programming language. Python is a high level programming language. Okay, that means if it is a high level programming language, the language does not consider or need not consider the low level features such as system configuration and memory management. Okay, the language will not consider the system configuration and memory management such as high level programming language. And next feature is very important feature, that is object oriented programming language. Okay, object oriented programming language. Okay, so Python supports object oriented programming language features. That means classes, objects, inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, encapsulation. All these features will be supported by Python language. Okay, and at the same time, the Python language కనిపిస్తుందా? Hello? Students, are you following?
Yes, sir.
Am I fast?
Yes, sir.
నేను ఫాస్ట్ గా వెళ్తున్నానా? ఓకేనా?
No, sir. Clear, sir.
Yeah. So Python supports object oriented concepts as well as procedure oriented concepts or procedure oriented programming concepts. Okay. Anybody having any idea regarding procedure oriented programming and object oriented programming? Anybody having any idea? Procedure oriented programming and object oriented programming. What we call POP and OOP. OOPS concepts and POP. Procedure oriented programming and object oriented programming. Anybody having any idea? No idea? Yeah, I will tell you. So generally our C language is procedure oriented programming language. Am I right? C language is a procedure oriented programming language. Am I right? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, C language is a procedure oriented programming language. So procedure oriented programming language means that language always makes use of functions. That language is always makes use of functions to perform any task or to perform any operation. Always we are going to use functions. Am I right? If you want to write the C program, that C program is a combination of functions. Am I right? First you write a main function, then you can write sub functions. So always whenever you want to write the C program, always you can write the main function followed by the sub functions. So if you want to perform any operation or any task using C language, definitely the C program should make use of functions. Am I right? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Procedure-oriented program always uses functions to write or to perform any tasks. Whereas object-oriented programming always makes use of classes and objects. Okay. Classes and objects to perform any tasks. So Python supports both. That means you can use classes, you can use objects, as well as you can use the functions also. Okay. by using Python language, if you are writing the program, in that program, you may use functions, or you may use classes, or you may use objects, or you may use inheritance, or may use polymorphism, or may use encapsulation. Anything you can use. Okay. So Python supports both procedure-oriented as well as object-oriented programming. Okay. Because if you see, C is a procedure-oriented programming language, whereas C++ and Java, these two are object-oriented programming languages. C++ and Java are object-oriented programming languages, whereas C is a procedure-oriented programming language. So whatever the tasks you are going to do by using these three languages, C, C++, Java, everything you can do by using Python language. That's why Python is the very much important language. Python supports both object-oriented as well as procedure-oriented programming concepts. Is it clear? Earlier, the programming language either procedure-oriented or object-oriented, but Python is both. Okay. Java is a object-oriented programming language, but not procedure-oriented programming language. C is a procedure-oriented programming language, but not object-oriented programming language. But Python is both. Python supports both. Okay. The sixth feature is portable. So portable means we can easily carry from one place to another place. Portable means we can easily carry from one system to another systems. That means the Python program can work on any kind of platforms. So we can say Python programs are platform independent. Python programs are platform independent. That means once you write the Python program, that program can work on any platform. That may be the Windows or Linux or we called Mac OS. On any platform, the program will work. That's why the Python programs are portable programs, or Python language is a platform independent language. Okay, whatever the platform is, the program will run very efficiently. Okay, that is the sixth feature. Then the next feature is interpreted language. Python is a interpreted language. That means once the Python program has been written, that program is given to the interpreter, not the compiler. Whereas C language or C++ or Java language, once you write the C program or C++ or Java program, the program is given to the compiler. But after writing the Python program is given to the interpreter, and the interpreter will convert your program line by line and execute your program. Interpreter is convert your program and run your program or execute your program and produce the output. That is the purpose of interpreter. Okay. Interpreter is converting line by line and execute the program and gives the output here. That means internally, whatever the Python program you have written, that Python program will be converted into bytecode. Internally, your Python program is converted into bytecode, and that bytecode will be converted into machine understandable code. Okay. This is what happened internally. When the program is given to the interpreter, your program will be converted into bytecode, and bytecode will be converted into machine understandable code. Okay. Then that machine understandable code will be executed and you will get the output. Okay. Simply after writing the program, there is no compilation. Directly you can click on run. Directly run tester program, you will get the output. But internally what happened here is your program will be converted into bytecode, and that bytecode will be converted into machine understandable code here. Okay, that is the internal process of your Python program. Then the next one is extendable. Python language is a extendable language. So as I told you earlier, Python is a open source language. That means the code for Python language is always available in open source. So anyone can access the code and anyone can add the low level modules. Anyone can add the low level modules to Python language. Already ఉన్న Python library ki you can add your own modules also. Okay, దాన్ని కూడా మీరు యాడ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. ఓకేనా? Then the next one is extensive libraries. The next one is extensive libraries. Okay, that means Python having a huge number of predefined libraries. A huge number of predefined libraries are there in Python language, so that the programmers are able to use those libraries and programmers are able to develop any kind of applications. Either it is simple application or complex application, you can easily develop by using the predefined libraries available in Python language. Okay. And then the last one is embeddable. The last one is embeddable. That means the Python program, once you write the Python program, once you write the Python program, that can be integrated. That can be integrated in any other program or any other programming languages program, like C or C++ or Java or HTML or PHP. Okay, అంటే మీరు రాసిన Python code ni you can embed in any other C program or C++ or Java or HTML code or PHP code. ఏ కోడ్ లో అయినా మీరు ఎంబెడ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. Okay, such a flexibility we have by writing the Python programs. Python programs can be integrated or can be embedded in any other programming languages. These are the 10 important features of Python language. Okay, first one is simple, second one is easy to learn, third one is free and open source, fourth one is high level programming language, and fifth one is object oriented, and sixth one is portable, and seventh one is interpreted, and eighth one is extendable, and the ninth one is extensive libraries, and the 10th one is embeddable. These are the 10 important features of Python language. Anyone having any doubts? Anyone having any doubts? Hello? Anyone having any doubts?
No, sir.
Yeah, and one more point I missed that one. Dynamically typed language. So Python is a dynamically typed language. Okay. So why we call it as a dynamically typed language is generally in any other programming languages, if you consider C language, in C language, whenever you want to store some data, you have to declare one variable. Am I right? And in that variable, you have to store the data. Am I right? So in C language, we can write something like this: int a equal to 10. అలాగే రాస్తారు. Clear? Yeah. data type is required and variable name is required and some value is required. Am I right? In C++ also, we can write in the same manner. Int a is equal to 10. In Java also, we can write the same manner. Int a is equal to 10. But coming to the Python language, in Python language, there is no concept of data types. Okay, there is no concept of data types here. Okay, so if you want to store any data in any variable, simply you can write the variable and you can write the data. A is equal to 10. Okay, you can write the variable name and is equal to some value. Based on this value, whatever you are assigning, based on this value at runtime, the Python interpreter consider this is a number. Athamautunda. So as a programmer, we are not specifying the data type. We are just writing the variable name and we are just assigning some value. So whatever the value you are assigning here, based on the value you are assigning, at runtime, dynamically the interpreter will assume, or the Python interpreter will consider what kind of variable it is. This is a number. Okay na? Ala kakunda, if you write something like this, some a is equal to some ABC. If you write something like this within quotations, this is considered as string. So at runtime, the interpreter consider this is a string which is stored in the variable A. So dynamically, the interpreter will consider the type of the value what you are storing. But as a programmer, we are not specifying the data type here. Okay, that's why Python language is called as a dynamically typed language. Python is a dynamically typed language. Okay, and the meaning ఏంటంటే dynamic means runtime. So at runtime, the type of the variable will be assumed or type of variable will be considered. That's why this is dynamically typed language. Okay, is it clear? Hello.
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Yeah. Now, whenever you want to write any Python program, you must perform two important operations. One is input operation and second one is output operation. Okay. So now we are going to see how to perform input operation and how to perform output operation in Python language. Okay. Input operation means we are going to read the input data from the keyboard. Okay. Input operation means we are going to read the data from the keyboard. Whenever you want to read the data from the keyboard, you have to perform the input operation. So in order to read the data from the keyboard, Python language provides one predefined function which is called as input function. Bracket we can write str. This is the predefined function we are going to use whenever you want to read any input data from the keyboard. ఎప్పుడైనా మీరు రాసే పైథాన్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ లో ఇన్పుట్ రీడ్ చేయాలి అంటే యూ హ్యావ్ టు యూజ్ ఇన్పుట్ ఫంక్షన్. ఇన్పుట్ బ్రాకెట్ లో యూ కెన్ రైట్ str. Okay, str means here str is nothing but a string which denotes the user prompt, which denotes the user prompt. That means in the output, while asking for the input, whatever the message you want to display, that message you can write in the place of str. Okay, that message you can write in the place of str. Okay, now For example, see here, I'm writing like this. Input within quotations I can write enter your name. Okay, my prompt is enter your name. That means by seeing this prompt, the user can know what is the input we have to give. Okay, what is the input we have to give? Enter your name. That will be stored in some variable, maybe x. Okay, x is equal to input of enter your name. This is the line we are going to use for accepting a string from the keyboard. Okay, always this input function always takes the data in the form of strings. Okay, input function always takes the data in the form of strings only. Okay, now let me show you the online compiler. Yeah, this is the one of the online compiler. Now I'm using Python 3. Yeah, see here. Here I can write Kanipistundadi? Hello?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah, x is equal to input of enter your name. Okay, that line is for accepting a string from the keyboard. And one string has been read, that will be stored in the variable x. If you want to print the text, simply you can write print and you can write x. Ante. There is no semicolons, there is no flower brackets, nothing like that. Okay. If you want to take any string, you can write x is equal to input of enter your name and you can write print of x. Print bracket lo variable name rastar ante. If you run this, see here, the output is, it is asking enter your name. So I am giving AVS. It will print AVS here. Karpistunda? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So this input function always accepts the data in the form of strings. Okay. So strings variable name is equal to input of some user prompt. Other string print print of x and raster. Okay. Suppose if you want to read integers, it is strings key. Suppose you want to read integers. Okay. Then we have to use, to read the input as integer, we have to perform the typecasting or we have to do type conversion. Okay. Endukante input function always accepts the data in the form of strings. Okay. A string ni kaasta meer dentlo marchukovali, integer loki marchukovali. Okay. అర్థమవుతుందా? So here the syntax will be like this. Input of str, this entire thing will be typecasted, into integers by using the int. Okay. Int is the one of the function in Python library. Int is the one of the predefined function for converting a string into integer. This is for converting string into integer. ఎప్పుడైనా పైథాన్ లో మీరు స్ట్రింగ్ ని ఇంటిజర్ కన్వర్ట్ చేయాలంటే యూ హ్యావ్ టు యూస్ ఇంట్ ఫంక్షన్. ఓకే, అదే మీకు రాస్తారు ఇంట్ ఆఫ్ ఇన్పుట్ ఆఫ్ str. దిస్ ఇస్ ద సింటాక్స్. దెన్ హియర్ we can write some variable name. A is equal to int of input of str. Okay, that is for integers. If you want to accept floating point numbers, then there is a predefined function called float. This is for converting, this is for converting string into floating point number. This is for converting string into floating point number. ఏం రాస్తారు? B is equal to float of, we can write input of str, so that we are accepting one input and that input will be converted into floating point number that will be stored in the variable called B here. Okay. అర్థమైందా?
Yes, sir.
Oh. Yeah, let me show you here. So x is a string kada. Now I'm taking y. Y is equal to int of input of, I'm writing enter your age. Age is a integer kada. Am I right? Age is a integer. So I'm using integer here. Y is equal to int of input of enter your age. And z, I'm taking the float. Float of input of, my prompting is enter your height. Height means you can say 5.6, 5.8 like that. So I can transfer this is a floating point number. Now I am printing x, I am printing y, and I am printing z. X is of type string, y is of type integer, and z is of type float here. Okay, so depends on the requirement. You may use directly input function, or you may convert into integer, or you may convert into float, or you may convert into double like that. Okay, if I run this program, see here, it is asking for enter your name. I'm giving AVS. It is asking for enter your age. I'm giving 31. And it is asking for enter your height. I'm giving 5.8. It is displaying all the three things. AVS, 31 and 5.8. Okay. Like that, we can read the input from the keyboard and you can display the data by using the print function. Okay. Is it clear? Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Is it clear to everyone how to read the input from the keyboard in Python language? There is a function called input function. Input function always accepts the data in the form of strings. If you want strings, directly you can use variable name is equal to input like this. If you want integers, this will be typecast into integers. This will be typecast into float. Depends on your requirement, you may perform typecasting here. Okay. Is it clear? Like that, you can write the programs in Python language. Okay. Suppose if you want to write the program for calculating the simple interest. Okay. Hello. You are going to write the program for calculating the simple interest. For simple interest, what is the formula? For simple interest, what is the formula? Hello.
Yes, sir. PTR by 100.
Yeah, PTR by 100. So we require P. So that will be of type integer. Integer, and we can have enter principal amount. And you can write T. The time is also in terms of months, so I can have integer only. So int of input of enter time. Then rate of interest, that will be floating point number. So I can write float of input of enter rate of interest. calculate SI is equal to what we can write? SI is equal to P into T into R by 100. Okay. SI is equal to P into T into R by 100. If you want to print that SI value, you can add print. If you want to print something like simple interest is equal to comma SI. Okay. If I run this program, it is asking for enter principal amount. Suppose I am giving 1000 or 10,000. Enter time maybe 5. Rate of interest. Some I am giving 2.5. The simple interest is 1250. Okay. Okay, now like that you can write the programs in Python language. Depends on the input, whatever you want to take, either integer or float or double or string. Depends on that. You may use directly the input function, or you can perform the typecasting here. Is it clear?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Yeah. Now the somebody typed down. Yeah. So the next topic is, this is very, very important, control statements in Python language. Control statements in Python language. So these control statements, the purpose of these control statements is to control the flow of execution. To control the flow of execution, we are going to use control statements. As a programmer, whenever you are writing the program execution control should be done by the programmer. So that control we can achieve or we can handle by using the concept of control statements. Okay. If you don't use any control statements in your program, then obviously your program will be executed in a sequential order. Suppose in our previous example, this example, we are not using any control statements. Simply we require 3 variables and we perform some operation to print the result. So in this program, we are not using any control statements. Then what happened? First, this line will be executed, then this line, then this line, then this line, then this line. All the 5 lines will be executed one after the another. That is the sequential execution. Okay. If you are not using any control statements in your program will be executed in sequential order. Ala kakunda, if you want to control the execution, that means if you want to execute first line, then you want to jump to the third line, or from there you want to jump to the 7th line, like that. If you want to control the execution, then you are going to use control statements. Okay. So here in Python language, we have 2 types of control statements. One is selection statements and second one is iterative statements. Okay. First one is selection statements and second one is iterative statements. Okay. So in this selection statements, we have if statement, we have if statement, whereas in iterative statements we have while statement and for statement. Okay, we have while statement and for statement, or we can say while loop or for loop. Okay. Is time is there? Hello?
No, sir. Sir, can we continue tomorrow?
Okay, okay, that's your wish. Okay, tomorrow
Sorry.
first we will see some example programs on if statement and while for. That means we are going to see the syntax of if in Python and while and for loop. Then we'll go for object oriented programming concepts. Okay. Is it clear,
Yes, sir.
today's session? Hello.
Yes, sir, it is clear.
Anyone please respond about the today's session. Today's session, is it okay?
Yes, sir, it was clear, sir.
Yeah. So if you have any doubts or if you have anything want to know about data structures or Python language, always you are welcome to ask any doubts in Python language or data structures. Okay. Yeah, that's the end of today's session. We will meet again tomorrow at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys, make sure that everyone will attend tomorrow's session even.